Hey everyone, good to be back. Sorry, I've been kind of a miss in the last few weeks. I've been traveling quite a bit. Lots going on with my new exciting project, Gulfstream LNG. We are kind of making progress towards getting started with the Fulk application soon. So it's very, very busy, but it's great. It's very exciting. But let's talk about what's going on in the world because the bullishness of LNG seems to have knowing no bounds in the last few weeks. Of course, all the bullishness started off with the Shell report, the Shell LNG Outlook that came out a few weeks ago. As always, Shell does a great job with these reports. Lots of great graphics, lots of very clear messages. But overall, very, very bullish on LNG. Supply is going to grow, demand's going to grow. There's going to be lots of room for new projects in the future. But I thought I'll just highlight a couple of interesting things. First, I think that what the Shell report really talked about was the importance of China. China is going to be a major, major source of of LNG market. It's importing gas from Russia, of course, but it's going to import a lot of LNG in the future. Is building a lot of new gas-fired power stations. I think they compared the number of gas-fired power stations they're building in the next 2 years, equivalent to what the UK has today. And they talk about their regas capacity, all these great things. So, though the Western media has been talking quite negatively of the China's economic prospects, the Shell report makes it very clear that gas is going to grow a lot in China, and the economy is going to continue to prioritize gas. There was a very interesting graph in the report about Beijing air quality and how when they use less coal and more gas, the quality improves over the last has improved over the last few decades. So that's a really important message for lots of countries around the world suffering with very, very bad air pollution. Of course, we're talking about India, we're talking about the rest of South Asia, Southeast Asia as well. So gas is definitely should be looked at a way to clean the environment. I think that we have been bombarded over the last few years about negative stories about gas being bad for the environment. Well, I think that this shows a very opposite story. If you really want to have clean air, yes, of course, renewables are great, but the report also makes it clear that gas is very important to increase the renewables. Gas supports renewables in many ways, grid stability, as well as backup power. And I think the report makes it clear that without gas, you can't really grow renewables. And also, I think the term they use is gas will help erode coal demand. And so that is another very positive thing. So I'm kind of glad to see that the last couple of years of the negative stories of gas, hopefully we're really seeing a turnaround, and this report adds to that. One of the most interesting graphs that was in that report was actually the amount of regas terminals that are being built around the world. I find this very, very interesting and very important. If you think about it, it's really the market, the demand, the people that actually buy the gas that should dictate the LNG market of the world. It shouldn't be the suppliers, it shouldn't be the regulators, it should actually be the people that are willing to pay the price for LNG. Used to be a premium price, now it's not such a premium price anymore. I see the JKM and the European gas price is less than $8 right now. So definitely not a premium price, but a price. And they're putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak, by building regas capacities. The Shell report showed that there's going to be 120 million tons of regas capacity built in 2024. I am blown away by this number. If you think about it, the world uses about 410 million tons of LNG a year. This year, we expect the supply to grow. I think the report said 7 to 20 million tons. Demand will grow about the same. The world will be in balance. That's great. But the guys that matter, the guys that actually buy the gas, will buy the gas, are investing for more gas in the future. By building 120 million tons of capacity, we're betting on that LNG is going to be growing by significant amounts, and that's going to be around for a long, long time. Imagine you live on an island. The island has 100 cars. Well, you expect there should be at least 100 places for the cars to park, whether it's at home or in the office or wherever they need to on the street. If the king of the island decides to build 25 more parking spots, there's only two ways to explain that. Either they expect the two things that explain that. They expect cars to be around for a long, long time, and not everybody's going to switch to bicycles on the island. and that the number of cars is going to go up. So I think that if you look at all the stuff in that report, to me, the most compelling is the fact that the market, which is really, as I said, China, India, Southeast Asia, Latin America, for the most part, is definitely betting on LNG to grow. So that kind of brings us back to the second very interesting news I think came out in the last 24 hours, which is Qatar's big announcement over their expansion. Qatar was in this expansion mode. It was going to increase by another 60 million tons or something of that sort from the 77 that they produce today. Today or yesterday, they announced they're going to increase that by an additional 16 million tons. So Qatar is going to go from the 77 around number to around 142 million ton number. I think this is a really big deal. Qatar, of course, is going to then become by far the world's largest producer, but it's also betting that it needs to get the market share while the rest of the suppliers seem to be stumbling. Who are the suppliers that are stumbling? Of course, Russia, because the Russian LNG is in a bit of a mess right now. Places like Iran that can't get their projects off the ground for various reasons. But most importantly, it's the US. The Biden administration pause has opened up the doors for other people to step in. So if the purpose of the pause was to somehow convince people to stop consuming LNG, that seems like a failure. If you own, a bar and you say, well, I think people are drinking too much, I'm going to shut down the bar, or I'm not going to sell as much alcohol from the bar, but there's another bar down the road that can expand, well, then you haven't achieved anything. Because in the end of the day, the people that want to drink will go to the other bar, and you're not going to change their behavior. And that's exactly what's happening now. So the Biden administration, or I shouldn't say Biden, but the DOE pause, which I hope doesn't last much longer, but probably will last till at least the next election, even though I do see there's some cooler heads are prevailing in the American Congress who seem to think that it is a false idea. Unfortunately, their solution is not going to work. You can't give the export supply demand balance obligation or study to the FERC. FERC is not geared up for that. FERC looks at safety, operation, engineering, environment, all of those factors. They don't really look at the US demand supply balance of gas. So their solution to take the power away from the DOA and give it to FERC, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But the point is that if the goal was to actually look at American supply demand balance, well, that's failed because U.S. Henry Hub prices are incredibly low, and there's been numerous studies saying that LNG just helps boost gas production in the country. And the second goal was to somehow convince the rest of the world that they should use less gas and go faster towards cleaner fuels. Well, that's not working because other people are going to step into the place, such as the Qataris have just shown us they can. So the Qatar expansion is also significant because, in the end of the day, Qatar is a state supplier. It's a state supplier owned by the state. We've all seen what happens when you give a lot of power of energy supply to a state entity. I think that, as you know, the Qataris do sell at oil-linked contracts typically and at fairly strict terms. These are two attributes that I don't think American LNG has. American LNG, though we have seen a bit of a change of that with the American government pausing it, for the most part, it's controlled by private companies that can determine how much they produce and when they produce it and where they send it to, within the DOE export limits, of course. So the US also sells it on a very transparent price, sells LNG. We have the gas on gas pricing, which is basically the US hub price plus pipeline plus liquefaction plus shipping equals a landed price in any market. The Qataris don't sell it that way. So, I think the marketplace has to say, hey, yes, Qatar is going to be a larger supplier for us in the future. It's a growing supplier, but do we want to have all the restrictions that come with it? I think Qatar is a very stable supplier. It's done a very, very good job of maintaining supply, keeping its projects in line, keeping everything operating very safely. But at the end of the day, it comes with its own state control. So I think in a nutshell, we have really seen that LNG, the bulls are back. The last couple of years have been tough in the media for LNG and gas. There's been a lot of naysayers about it. I think what we've seen in the last couple of months is that the world needs a lot more LNG. The world is willing to build capacity to accept that LNG. And there's not many places in the world, one can argue, outside the US and Qatar. Mozambique is stumbling. Australia is barely going to stay flat with what it has. Maybe we see a project in Abu Dhabi. That's quite exciting. That's a big project. But other than that, Canada really hasn't shown its ability to capitalize on the LNG Canada FID. So where's the sources of the gas going to come from? They have to come from the US and, of course, Qatar. And so while the market is investing in the regas capacity, we also need investment in the supply capacity. And that's where I think I'll do a pitch for my shameless pitch for my project. We're still looking for equity investors. We did close on some seed funding, so that's very exciting. That means get us started on the FERC process. But we're looking for equity investors. We'll be the first new project in the FERC system in 5 years, and we will be definitely one of the more cheaper, more less expensive projects in the next wave of LNG. So talk to me about that. But most importantly, let's continue to allow the bulls to roar for LNG. Thank you so much.